You ready?
I hope so.
Okay. Hi friends, welcome back. My name is Addie of Well Loved Clothing, where we love everything vintage, thrift, secondhand, handmade, and sustainable. So today we are doing something so fun that I have not done in quite a while. I really can't remember the last time that I did this, and I think it was maybe like 6 months ago. So we are doing a thrift flip today. It has been a minute since I've been creative, but I took about a month and a half break, and I'll tell you all about that towards the end of this video because I also have some really big news to share with you. But today, getting back into what we're actually doing, I got this huge pile of just tablecloths, vintage tablecloths in these adorable colors, a couple of curtains too. So I got this huge pile of fabric about 6 months, or really like a year and a half, 2 years ago. It was when we were living in Greenville and I just haven't done anything with it yet. So I'm going to take you through my ideas, my inspiration, each step of the process, the before and after of each little project that we do today. Peter is also here. So he will be joining us because we are going to be doing a little thrift flip for him also. Probably something matching, which is gonna be adorable.
So excited.
I know.
A little corny.
A little bit, but adorable. You can't lie. So we are going to thrift flip some things, and stay tuned for a big announcement at the end of this video. So let's get to thrift flipping. Okay, the first piece that we're going after today is a dress that I have been wanting to make for forever. I feel like it will be relatively easy, but have a couple of nuances that will be fun to kind of see what we can do. So it's definitely going to be one of those projects that I'm sort of sewing and just seeing what happens, but I could not be more excited. So we are going to recreate this kind of dress. I've wanted to recreate a dress like this for so long. I just feel like they're so fun with their pattern mixing and the big volume of it and just how comfortable and summery and fun they are. I also feel like they have so much layering potential with the like little straps and just the cute kind of scoop neckline and back. So with all of this amazing vintage fabric, I thought it would be great to do kind of a mishmash of the different checkered prints while still bringing my like fun, colorful boldness with all of the checks and just the brightness of these colors. So that's really what I envisioned when I first got these fabrics. I think the weight of this fabric is perfect because it's a little heavier, and so it will hold down the dress a little and still be voluminous and have great twirl effect, but still lay in a kind of flattering way. And I'm so excited that we're actually going to execute it today. So let's just get into this fabric and see what we can come up with. Let's do it. So first things first, I need to measure my bust line. That's really the only measurement that matters in this dress since everything else is just kind of a dent. So I'm measuring just above my bust where I actually want the neckline to hit, which was about 37 inches for me. So this next part is where I'm just trying to figure it out as I go. So you're gonna figure it out with me. So we're going to do some sewing math because I want this first tier to be gathered. So the first tier circumference measurement needs to be bigger than the actual neckline measurement that I just took. So I need a bigger flat fabric tube. So when I gather it, it's the right bust length. So I want the flat fabric tube to be 1.5 times the actual bust measurement. So for me, I'm doing 37 times 1.5, which equals 55.5 inches, which is going to be my total tube measurement for that first tier. So if we were just doing a 3-tiered dress in simple fabric and not doing patchwork, I would just cut out a piece that was 55.5 inches long to make my top tier. But since we're doing patchwork, I want to make sure that each piece is the right width and placement for where I want it to be on this top tier. So I wanted there to be a good bit of blue and a good bit of yellow for this top tier. So I took that 56 inches and basically divided it into 4 and just figured out some math from there to figure out what I liked for the width of each piece of this top tier. So it was really just personal preference, but this is the breakdown that I ended up with because I wanted some pieces wider than others. I also took a measurement from the top of my bust where the neckline would sit to the bottom of where I wanted the top tier to end, and that ended up being 11 inches. So they were all 11 inches long. So let's cut up these pieces. Now that all my pieces are cut and I have a rough understanding of how I want them laid out, I can start pinning them together to make the giant tube. So I'm laying my first 2 pieces face to face and pinning up one side. And to save myself time from having to pin and sew and pin and sew, I'm going to go ahead and pin all of the pieces for my top tier together. Once my top tier tube is pinned, I can then sew each of those pinned sections down. So I'm just using a straight stitch to attach those pieces together and then doing a zigzag stitch along the edge to basically act as a serged edge so it doesn't fray. Once all of the seams attaching the pieces are together and I have a complete tube and I've ironed down all of those seams, I can then do my ruffle stitch around the top to make the top gathered. There are a few ways to ruffle your fabric, but the way that I like to do it is to increase my stitch length to, on my machine, 4, and then make 2 parallel stitches about 1/4 of an inch apart, leaving space between the first stitch and the fabric's edge and going all the way around the piece that I want to ruffle. So here's what those 2 stitches look like before we start gathering them. So in order to gather them, we are going to grab the 2 loose ends of both of those stitches and start pulling. The reason we're pulling both of them is because we're going to sew down the center of these 2, and it just helps to keep your ruffle intact. And if you break one string, it's easier than having to go back and do a whole other stitch. So we are going to spend some time gathering the top of our first tier. We're going to take a little bit of a left turn from the gathering of this fabric because we need to make the bias tape top that the gathering is actually going to attach to. So ultimately I want it to look like this, which is essentially bias tape straps and binding. And so I'm making my own bias tape out of the yellow checkered fabric, but before I can do that, I have to make sure I have the right measurements for this bias tape. So for those measurements, this is my bodice and these are the pieces that I'm trying to figure out the lengths for. My bust measurement that I took earlier is a total of 37 inches in circumference, but I want my straps to be 11 inches apart. So I know that my front piece needs to be 11 inches long, plus a little extra for seam allowance. For the back of my bodice, I want it to cinch in just a little bit, so I'm going to subtract 1 inch and do 10 inches. So by doing simple math, my total bust measurement minus the front and back told me that I needed 8-inch arm drops, but I also need to add extra because my arm drops are going to turn into my strap lengths. So here are my final bias tape measurements that I need for the bodice of this dress, and I am now going to find the bias of this fabric, which is super easy because it's a checkered fabric, so I know I'm going straight at a 45-degree angle between the checkered patterns. So once I find that and mark out the measurements that I need to cut, I'm cutting 3-inch wide pieces with the following lengths. So I can now attach my bias cut pieces to my gathered top tier. After finding the center of front and back, I'm pinning my 11-inch piece to the front bodice and my 10-inch piece to the back. Once those are pinned, I'm sewing the bias piece to the bodice, but making sure to stay between the 2 stitches of the ruffle. Once those pieces are attached, we are basically going to create binding by ironing the stitch flat and double rolling the bias tape to bind the raw edges. I'll show you a little more of this once we get to the strap and it'll make more sense. So with the front and back pieces secured, we are going to move on to the strap. So I'm attaching our super long pieces of bias tape to the center of where the arm drop is going to be and pinning from the center of the arm drop to the edge of the front and back neckline that we just attached. Then straight stitching that to attach the arm drop. So now back to the part that I was just talking about a second ago where we are creating our own binding and in this case making the straps. P.S. Don't come after me for this ironing board. My ironing board is currently broken and this is all that I have. So if you've been here for a long time, you know I used to use a flat iron, so we have upgraded. But back to the project. I'm ironing down the stitch that I just created and then flipping the piece over to basically continue the same fold that it would have, going all the way up the strap, making sure to give that a good press so it will stay closed. After repeating on all 4 sides of the straps, I'm then folding down the opposite edge of what will be my bias tape. Also pressing that down and then folding that in half so that the 2 edges of the folded binding are sandwiched together to make the strap. Since this will be the exposed edge of my strap, I like to make sure that this is as clean as possible of an edge. So once I'm confident with how that's pressed, I can pin those edges together, making sure to give myself a little bit of a right angle at the part where the strap meets the dress so that it will lay a little better. I'm going to be stitching the ditch to attach the other side of the folded bias tape to the top of the bodice. So I'm also pinning the folded edge of the arm drop in order to stitch that ditch and going all the way across to the other end of the strap. I chose to pin this on the front of the fabric because I think it's the easiest way to get as close to the edge as possible while also catching the fabric on the back. I'm doing the same thing with the other corner of the strap when it leaves the dress by folding it into a little bit of a right angle and then pinning up the strap. After repeating the same process on the other strap, I can then sew all of those pins down. I made these straps extra long just to make sure I had enough to mess with the length if I wanted to, so you could really easily make these into tie straps too, which would be super cute, but not really the vibe that I wanted for this dress. So now I can actually figure out how long I want these straps to be. So you can see our cute little gathered bodice, and I'm just pinning the 2 straps together kind of roughly to figure out how long I want them. I'm then measuring from the bodice point to the top of that strap and marking with a pin on each strap the length of that plus about 1/2 inch of inseam on both sides. With all of those marked, I'm cutting off the excess and seam ripping about 1 inch down on each strap so I can attach them. I'm then folding just the inside crease open and pinning those right sides together. I then sewed across where that pin was and then reclosed the opening that I had seam ripped when I was attaching the strap together. So here you can see the final strap. It's a little rough, but I don't really care because it's really cute. Now that our top tier is done, the bottom 2 tiers are basically just gathering a ton of fabric and getting that patchwork right. So we are going to start off this second tier trying to figure out how we want it to look and how we want it to match up with the top tier, because I don't want any seams touching to give it that really patchwork kind of look. So for the first tier, we only multiplied the amount of fabric by 1.5 for the gather because I didn't want it to be too voluminous, but I did want a little bit of that gather. But for our second tier, I really want it to be very full. This is still a really heavy fabric, so we're not going to go all the way double, but I'm going to do 1.75 times the circumference of the second tier, which then makes the second tier 98 inches total. I also decided I wanted to just represent all of the colors equally on this tier, so I divided the total 98 inches into 4 equal segments of 24.5 inches wide, and I wanted this tier to be a little bit longer than the top tier, but shorter than the bottom tier, and so I made it 14 inches tall. So with all my measurements figured out, I am now just cutting each piece for this tier. With those pieces cut, we're repeating the same process we did for the first tier, where we're laying each piece face to face to make our tube, pinning those together, then sewing them together. I'm also trimming the edges so that I can zigzag stitch the side for that serger stitch. And now we have our tube that's ready to gather. So we're doing those same 2 stitches that we did earlier at the top of the tube on our longest stitch setting so that we can gather this fabric. With that stitch done, I am marking the front center, the back center, and the 2 sides of my fabric so I know how much I need to gather in each section. So once those are marked, I am just pulling both of those threads to gather my fabric and pinning as I go to keep the ruffles in place. Once my ruffles are all where I want them to be and pinned down to the second tier, I can take it to my sewing machine, do a straight stitch across the top, do a zigzag stitch on the edge to keep it from fraying, and then using my iron to press the seam up so that the front will lay flat. This now means that we can move on to our final tier of this dress, and I'm so excited about how this is turning out already. So first things first, we need to figure out our measurements. So since I'm doing 1.75 times the second tier total, which was 98 inches, the circumference of my third tier tube is going to be 172 inches total. For this tier, I wanted it to be a little bit more patchworky and have a few pieces that were much smaller than some others and some really big pieces of red. So this is the breakdown of each measurements of each piece of patchwork on this layer. I also wanted this layer to be the longest, and so it's 22 inches tall. Once I had all of my measurements in place and knew which pieces were going where, I then cut all of them out and pinned them face to face to create the giant tube for our third tier. Once all of those pieces were pinned together, I took it to my machine and made my straight stitch and my zigzag stitch along the edge and could move on to the gathering portion of the third tier, which is the exact same as all of the other portions. So say it with me, we're doing the 2 long stitches across the top, finding our corners and our centers of the front and back, marking those with a pin, pulling those strings together, pinning it down, and sewing those together with a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch along the edge so it doesn't fray. So we can now move on to hemming this dress because it is almost done. So I'm cutting off any excess fabric from the bottom to make it even, and I'm just going to do a double rolled hem for this piece. And so from the inside, I am folding up 1/2 inch and ironing it flat to get it as crisp as possible, and then folding it 1 whole inch up, ironing that nice and crisp, and pinning that down to create our hem. With that pinned, I am doing 1 stitch about 3/4 inches up from the edge of the fabric to create a nice flat hem, and this dress is done! Okay, I am absolutely in love with this dress. I cannot believe that we accomplished this as well as we did. I was a little scared about the neckline just because the casings of it is a little difficult, but this turned out way better than expected. I love the yellow neckline. I love the color combo. I love the yellow neckline, and I love using more of those yellow pieces. I was worried that they were gonna go a little more like clown core with the brightness of the color, or even like a little childish, a little teachery, but I think the addition of these navy and tan pieces kind of mute it out and make it look a little more cohesive and a little softer. here. It's also pretty heavyweight, so I like how heavy it is, but it's still really breathable because it's just those vintage cotton tablecloths. So this is just a dream come true, especially with how much I love checkered patterns. And I think the length of it is also just perfect because the volume mixed with just right above that ankle is just so dang cute. So perfect for summer. Could wear it with a turtleneck in the winter too and just have a year-round super flowy, super cute dress. Oh, and also I had some extra scraps from doing the hem at the bottom, and so I made a really long waist tie that I think will be so cute to just do, like if you're not feeling super voluminous, or maybe if you have something a little bit nicer to go to that you want something a little less casual, but it still keeps the volume of the skirt and the general idea kind of the same, but it just gives the dress a little bit of shape and maybe even elevates it a little bit. So I am so in love with how this dress turned out. So let's move on to the next thrift flip. Okay, now that we have the dress done for me, we are going to make a pair of pants for Peter, and I'm really excited about it. I have not made pants for men before, and so it'll be a little bit different, but I am probably going to print a pattern for it since this is my first time doing it and I just don't really know how to do it. But I think we haven't really decided on color yet.
No, I just want patterned pants.
Yeah, he loves patterned pants.
It is so hard to find patterned pants.
Yeah.
Any guys out there, you feel me?
They're either like super skinny or like really baggy. I feel like there's not like a good fit.
I can't even find patterned pants that don't fit.
That's true.
Literally, like next time you go thrifting, go to the men's section and walk through the pants.
Yeah.
If there's anything other than denim or khaki or gray, I would be impressed. Like, they don't even make colored pants.
He's on a soapbox.
I'm sorry. I get passionate. So...
men's thrifting is very different than women's thrifting. We understand. I find him a lot of shirts. Yeah. Very rare that I find him bottoms. And so I think I'm probably going to start making some bottoms.
And half the shirts
we'll see how it goes today.
Women's shirts anyway.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. You do have a lot of women's shirts because they have cute patterns.
But when your wife is an amazing seamstress, you just make her make you pants.
There you go.
So I'm gonna have
she wants to make you a matching pair of pants with her dress.
Yeah, I can't say no.
So I think, do you have any color preferences? I like the blue.
I think the blue, but
I feel
don't
like this
want
is too like
color.
American flag.
That feels
kind
like,
of.
And then the yellow feels like Ronald McDonald to me.
The yellow feels like Ronald McDonald.
Yeah, I don't know why.
That's new information.
So
we'll see.
We have a different blue here, though.
Yeah, so we'll see what we end up doing with that, but tell them about your preferred fit of pant.
Yeah, so I really love cropped pants. I've got like, I don't know, I don't really have a style. I really like a Euro cut, but then there's also like this weird lumberjack side that I like.
It's like outdoorsy, like granola kind of, but with a touch of Euro skinny pant jogger.
It's like hipster hiker.
That sort of thing. You know how we feel about personal style here. It's so personal sometimes it's hard to put words to it.
I'm going to coin it as hipster hiker.
Hipster hiker, that's good.
That's my style.
That's probably pretty close to it.
So I love like a cropped pant. I want it to fit pretty tight, not like skinny jean tight. I don't want it to be like a second skin. But yeah, mainly just cropped.
Yeah.
Tie waist is always nice. I don't know, I'm pretty simple.
Yeah.
Mainly just like a cropped kind of straight leg pant.
Yeah. So these are a few of the ideas that we've talked about here, and we are going to go after this sort of vibe, just that casual but not like pajama pant, cropped sort of pant. Give him something a little patterned, maybe mix some patterns, and let's make some pants. You ready?
I hope so.
Okay. Okay, if you have seen any of my thrift flips, you know I'm not that big of a pattern girl, but since we're doing something completely new that I don't really know the shape of, we are going to use a pattern. So I went to Etsy and purchased this amazing little pants pattern. I have it linked below if you're interested. I just think the shape is perfect. They have an elastic waist, and I am very excited to figure out how to make these pants. So this was a downloadable and printable pattern. So I'm printing out any of the pieces that I need, trimming any excess, and taping them together to create this pattern. And once I have the pattern shaped together, I'm cutting out the size that I need. This pattern thankfully includes the seam allowance within the pattern, so I didn't have to add any excess outside of the lines. With each pattern piece cut out, I can then cut out my checkered fabric, and I'm deciding to go with the blue concept because I like how the navy blue and the light blue mix with each other. So I'm laying my pattern piece flat and using a few heavy random objects from around my house to weight down the pattern, and then cutting out each pant leg, repeating the same process on my darker blue checkered fabric for the other side. I also cut out the waistband, which we'll see later, and the pockets, which I'm going to attach now. I wanted these pants to have pockets because I feel like that will make them look a little less pajama-y because this fabric is a little bit more casual. So following following the instructions on the pattern, I pin the 2 angled side openings of the pockets to the front pieces of the pants. And once those are pinned, I'm going to sew here and here to attach the front of my pocket. So here are those front pieces attached, and now I need to top stitch my pocket down so that it'll lay flat once it's folded inside. So I'm going to stitch here and here right up along the edge, and you can see here how close and tiny that stitch is. This just helps the pockets to lay correctly and none of the inside fabric to peek out, but it also makes it look nice and professional. So now we can attach the back of the pocket by laying these face to face with our pockets, pinning around the outside scoop, and stitching from the top point of the pocket to the bottom point of the pocket. So you can see here how the pocket looks after that stitch is made. I also zigzag stitch the outside to keep it from fraying. So to finish out this pocket, I am flipping over my fabric so that my pocket is laying across the back, and then pinning down the side where the bottom of the pocket attaches to the pants, and across the top where the top attaches to the pants, and sewing across where I pinned to keep that pocket in place. So this is a really good look at those final stitches and how the pocket is attached to the front of the pants and laying so beautifully with that little top stitch. So now that we have our pockets attached, we can start creating the legs of these pants. So I wanted the legs to be different from the front and the back, and so I'm laying my light blue checkered face up and then putting the face of the navy blue checkered back to my light blue front piece and then pinning down the inside of the leg. While doing this, I learned that men's pants have a wider back leg than most pants that I create, especially because I'm usually creating high-waisted pants for myself. So I had to fold them a little bit funky to get the edges to match up. But once I had my outside edges matched up, I pinned all the way down that side of the leg. Also, just to mention what happens with the pockets, you pin them the exact same way that you would on the pants, so all the way down the side. So I went ahead and pinned all of the side seams of the pant legs so that I would only have to pin once and then sew once. So once each side seam of each leg is pinned, I take it to my machine and do a straight stitch down right where my pins are, and then do a zigzag stitch on the outside again so it doesn't fray. Now that my legs are done, I can start assembling my pants. So first things first, I need to do my crotch seam. So I'm leaving one leg of the pants inside out and flipping one to right side out, and then putting the right side out inside the inside out so that both legs are face to face with each other. I'm then matching up the crotch seam of the pants, so that middle seam in the leg, and pinning that together so then I can pin from the center up to the edge of the crotch drop. Repeating up the crotch drop on the front side, and then doing a straight stitch to attach and a zigzag stitch to finish. With the pant legs attached and the basic structure intact, I can now create the waistband. So I am marking where the buttonholes need to go on the front, where my little drawstring is going to come through. And this pattern had great little markings for it, so I marked those with pins and then used my buttonhole foot to create 2 1/4-inch buttonholes on the front of this waistband. So we can now attach our waistband to our pants. So starting in the front, I am marking the center to make sure that I'm matching the center seam up right between those 2 buttonholes that I just created, and attaching that with a pin. Since I have my center point marked, I can then pin the waistband all the way around the top, and I'm essentially creating a large elastic casing that's going to be folded over and stitched into the back of these pants. So with my waistband pinned, I can then sew a straight seam all the way around the waistband. And I don't have to zigzag the inside edge because it's going to be inside of that casing, but I do need to zigzag the outside edge of the waistband because that needs to be a finished edge. We are then going to fold over our waistband to create the casing for the elastic and the drawstring by folding about 1.5 inches of our 3-inch waistband over to the back. I am going to stitch the ditch, so I need to make sure that there is just enough fabric underneath the front seam to be caught stitching on the front. So I am pressing the top of that waistband down and then pinning from the front side in the ditch, making sure to catch that back waistband fabric, and sewing all the way around, leaving a 2-inch space in the back so I can put the elastic in. I am then using Peter's waist measurement to measure my elastic, cutting how much I need, attaching it to a safety pin in order to push it through the casing I made for the waistband. So once that comes out the other side, I am stitching the elastic together and closing off the little gap I left in the back to push the elastic through. I then keep forgetting to show you how I made these little ties, but it's basically just a tube with finished edges that you flip inside out. So once I have that tie done, I can use the same process of attaching it to a safety pin and pushing it through the buttonhole in the front and scrunching it around the pants until it comes out the other side. I then hemmed the bottom of the pants using the same process as the dress, where I just folded up 1/2 inch, folded up 1 inch, stitched that down, and these pants are done!
So these are the pants that Addie made me, and I kind of love them. I don't know if you guys like them as much as I do, but they're cropped like we talked about. I love a good cropped pant. For some reason I like my ankles. I don't know why. Probably my best feature. I love the pockets. The pockets are nice and high. And one thing about like fitted pants and crop pants like this is usually the crotch is either way too short or way too long. And this one's kind of perfect. It fits me right where I need it to. Perks of having a wife who's a seamstress and knows how to sew everything perfectly. So yeah, I mean, I really like it. We went with the double blue, so we went with the darker blue and the lighter blue on the back. I think it works really well together, and I like the kind of two different pant legs. So this is the waistband, and it's got a tie here, obviously, so I can tie it to whatever I need to. I can wear it higher or lower. Super excited about the fit, super excited about having pattern pants finally, and hopefully you guys like them as much as I do.
These are the two pieces together, and I really love how they turned out.
Yeah, I think it like rhymes enough, but isn't like super matchy.
Yeah, because I didn't want it to be like his pants are obviously the exact match of this dress, but I love that they kind of like speak to each other a little bit. And I did end up actually having some extra fabric, which y'all saw there was a ton of extra fabric.
So much fabric.
So I did end up making one more piece. So, big announcement, this is for future baby Gunnin coming in October!
We're so excited. I don't know if you can tell that it's a onesie.
Yeah, it's a little onesie that matches his pants, and so I just made this little piece. I still need to put buttons on it, but we have months until I need to finish that. So we are just so excited. I am 26 weeks pregnant now.
If you can't tell.
If you can, yeah, I'm sure that y'all have probably been questioning at this point, but we just can't wait. It's gonna be so much fun, a really sweet new journey for us, and so that's actually why I've been taking so many breaks and why I might continue to take some breaks.
Why she might have seemed out of breath in some of the shots.
Why I am always out of breath and always hungry. But I will be sharing a lot more of that, probably doing some maternity thrifting, probably doing some more making outfits videos, and yeah, we're just pumped.
And he's already so well loved.
He is so well loved. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. That's so sweet. So I did announce it on my Instagram not too long ago, so if you follow me there, you've known for a bit. But thank you for being here along the journey and for continuing to just hang out with this. You will probably see Peter more because I'm gonna need someone to talk in my videos since I am running out of breath as I'm saying this thing. But do you have anything else to say?
No, just stay tuned for the best dressed family of all time.
Best dressed family of all time. Making all our clothes, homesteading, doing everything we want to. All right, well, thank you for joining us today and for making these, you can say it with me, and for making these outfits with us and for just celebrating this new addition to our family and everything going on in the well-loved world. So, you are well-loved.